all of a sudden, there's my mother. She appeared at the foot of my bed. And all she said to me was, honey, I'm okay. And she disappeared. And I was like, wait, where are you going? And I couldn't see her anymore, but I could still hear her. And she says to me, where you are, the energy moves very slow. Where I am, it moves very fast. And I had to slow it down so you could see me, and I can't sustain it. And I'm like,
Wow.
Well, and I'm just standing there. I felt like, I mean, I never looked down to see if I had a body, but I could see. I never looked down to see if I had a body. Then I heard a male voice speak to me telepathically, and it said, that is not what I look like. So I watched as the light form receded about, I don't know, 30 feet, 40 feet from me, and it stopped. And then it changed from a light form into a man. And there he was.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today I have Pat Essoff with us. She has had some spiritual experiences we're going to be talking about today, including after-death communications. She's had some lucid dreaming and other spiritual experiences with loved ones, and even an encounter with Jesus. So I want to thank you so much for coming on, Pat. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you. One of the first things I always ask everybody, I know you've had a lot of experiences. Just before we even got going here, I understand you've had a number of different things. And when you were kind of naming off all the different things that you've gone through, I was like, wow, you've not only had just one, because sometimes I talk to someone who's had one of these experiences. And you started naming these different things. I'm like, okay, this is going to be really interesting. That's why I was like, okay, I'm like, let's talk about this. So if you can think of, though, before we get into that, if you can go back to the first type of experience that you would have had that would have shifted something in you, I'm wondering when that was and who you were before that, the type of person you were before that change. Is that easy to define?
I think so. I've always been an open person. I'm not religious. I grew up, my mom is white, my father's Puerto Rican, but he didn't raise me. So my mom was Irish. And so I grew up in a Catholic family. I had two older brothers, and they were also white. Their father was, they had a different father who died young. And so, there was religion around my childhood, but I never really, subscribed to any particular dogma in my life. And I think I was a bit of a skeptic. I was the type that was like, I saw terrible things happening in the world, and I was like, there's no God. Why would a God allow this to happen? Well, now I know the reasons. I know why we're here and why these things happen, and so on and so forth. But personally, for me, I was on active duty. I was a naval officer, and I was stationed in Hawaii in my 20s, and most of my life I practiced law. So I'm kind of like a very basic, regular person who doesn't get into different things that don't seem normal to me.
Right.
But I've always been open. Always been open. And then when I was in my mid-20s, I was stationed in Hawaii, and I learned about meditation because I grew up in New York City on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, was where I spent my childhood. And I didn't know anything about meditation. We went to church, everyone had their communion, their confirmation, that sort of stuff. So I get to Hawaii and I learn about meditation. And one day I'm sitting, and I don't know, something happens to me when I meditate, and it still happens to this day. But so I was in meditation, I'm on the couch, and I feel myself going deep, and all of a sudden I hear this sonic boom. And I felt like I was under the ocean, like under the ocean. And then I see all these colors, like fractal colors. It looked like a kaleidoscope of colors. And it scared me. I was like, you know what? You're going to die. You need to get up. You're going to die. This is what I was thinking. I was like 25 when this happened. After that happened, I didn't meditate again for 25 years. Wow. I stopped. I completely stopped. That's how much it scared me. But what it did was it kind of like, I just wasn't sure. So I really didn't, like I said, I was open-minded, I live and let live kind of person, whatever works for you. But to me, the Bible was, for example, it was written by man. Jesus did not write that Bible. His disciples didn't write it. It was written hundreds of years after they died. And while I respect religion, like I said, I've read a lot of religious things and spiritual things, and I respect people, but I just, I don't know. I didn't know. I wasn't even sure if Jesus really existed. I just didn't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2003, my mother died in September 2003. I loved my mother dearly. She was probably the greatest love of mine, without question. And when she died, I was devastated. Okay. And the morning that she died, it was September 10, 2003. I was not by her side. I was at home. I was with her the entire day before and most of the night, crying, devastated, heartbroken. Went home to take a shower, eat something, try to get a little rest so I can go back and face things. So the next morning, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, and I'm like, oh, I have to deal with this now. I got to deal with it. And I have a friend with me, and she's laying on her side behind me, and I'm sitting like this, and then all of a sudden I feel this rush of energy. Like when you feel the wind, or when somebody touches you, you feel your body being impacted, right?
Right.
So I feel this rush of energy just go right through me, and I knew it was her. And I said to my friend, I'm like, my mother just went right through me. She went right through me. She just went right through me. And then right after I said that, the phone rang. And it was the funeral director. And he says to me, your mother just died. What do you want to do with the body with your insurance? And that's how it started.
Wow.
So after that, I felt her around me, like very strongly. I felt her around me. And I didn't see her, but I felt her. Still, I was stuck between devastation and denial. Like I didn't want to deal with it. 4 months goes by, and I get a phone call from her husband of 25 years by then. And he says to me, they called me Patty Ann when I was little. So he says, Patty Ann, I'm going to move to Florida with my sister. So if you want anything, now is the time to come. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I have to go. And so I get in my car and I drive up there. They're living in Westchester County. I'm still in New York City, in the city. And I get there. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to smell anything. I don't, But I'm like, all right, so I'll start in the bedroom. I'll go to her nightstand and, see if there's anything I want. So I'm standing there, and the first thing I see is the empty bed, where she laid for so long, she was sick and whatever. And I was, I was hurt. So I'm just standing there, and then I get this feeling, like a compulsion, compelling me to go to the closet. So I'm like, I was going to the nightstand. So I go to the closet, I go to her closet, and normally you get to the closet and you start rummaging through clothes or whatever, no, this feeling is like, look down. So I'm like, I look down and I see my portfolio that I used in law school to go on job interviews. Okay. I didn't even know that thing was still around. With the lock, it looks like a big diary, and you have the memo pad, and you slip the cardboard in the back, and you got business cards, and slot that thing. And I see it. I hadn't seen that for 10 years. I didn't even know it was still around. So I pick it up, and it's locked, and I could see there's nothing in there because you could kind of see inside. And then I feel like break the lock. So I go into the kitchen, I get a butter knife, and I break the lock. I don't see anything in there like I suspected. No pad, no pen, no business cards, no nothing. And then I get the feeling, stick your hand behind the sleeve where you put the cardboard, stick your hand into the slot. So I'm like, all right. I stick my hand back there and I feel an envelope. I take it out. It was a goodbye letter from my mother. She wrote it before she went into the hospital.
Wow.
It was a goodbye letter. And the handwriting's really, I still have it. The handwriting was really scratchy. And I can't even imagine what it took for her to write that. But I remember the last 2 lines, like it just seared into my heart. And she said, I don't know what else to say, except just try to be happy. Because I don't want to get upset, right? But because without that, nothing else much matters. And then she says, if it's true that we go on, I will watch over you. Love, Mom. So I was like, that was comforting, but it was just the oddest thing. So, after that, I was really upset, and I said, I'm leaving. And I took a few things and I left, and I went home. And I could still feel my mom around me, but really nothing else was happening. I just could sense her presence. So then, all of a sudden, like not too long after that, I started experiencing sleep paralysis. I didn't even know such a thing existed. Mm-hmm. And then I learned that the brain secretes a hormone when you're sleeping that temporarily paralyzes you, so you don't act out your dreams. Mm-hmm. So if you walk in your dreams, that means that you have a deficiency in that hormone. But I wasn't sleeping. I was laying in my bed when it overcame me. And honestly, growing up in a Catholic family, or maybe seeing too many movies, I'm thinking something's trying to get me, something evil.
Right.
So I'm paralyzed in the bed, and I'm like in my head screaming, you're not going to get me. You're not going to get me. I'm going to fight you. You're not going to get me. And that happened quite a few times. And then one night I feel it coming on. I'm like, oh, here we go again. And it happens, and I'm paralyzed. And then all of a sudden I'm at the ceiling. I didn't know anything about out of body. I didn't know anything about that stuff, but I'm at the ceiling. How do I know I'm at the ceiling? Because I see it. It's like in my face, if I had a face. Mm-hmm. And, I could see the paint, and it was right in my face. And I felt like a little cloud, like a little cloud. And there was another cloud next to me. And it was talking to me telepathically. And it says to me, asking me if I want to go out and leave the room, go into the night. And I'm like, okay. It felt normal. I was like, okay. So we start to go through the ceiling. And I was completely disgusted. I could taste the paint. I could smell the paint. I felt like I became the paint. Like I was the paint. And it shocked me. Like I just was subsumed into the paint in the ceiling. And it shocked me so much, I shot back into my body. And I never saw that little cloud again. And I know it wasn't my mother. It was not my mother, because it felt like a male energy. It felt like a male to me. I don't know who it was. I don't know what it was. And I never saw it again. And an experience like that didn't happen again. But what did happen not too long after that was I started seeing fog. And when I say fog, I mean fog. It wasn't making my skin wet, but there was fog around. And I saw it in the daytime, but it was especially prevalent at night. And everywhere I went, I saw the fog. I remember one time I was in the movie theater with my friend, and I'm like, is it foggy in here? And she says, I don't see any fog. I was like, okay, I see fog. So that fog stayed with me for years. I don't know what it was. It sort of felt like it was supposed to comfort me somehow, but I don't know what it was. It didn't feel like my mom. I don't know what it was, but I saw fog. And So I moved to another apartment. I'm still in the city. I moved to another apartment. The fog followed me to the next apartment. It was still there. And I remember, nights I would lay in the bed with my eyes closed, and I would open my eyes, and I'm doing this to get the fog off of me. It was like, I know. It was on me.
Wow.
So we're in, like, I don't know, my mom died 2003. We're in like 2005, 2006 timeframe. And I was hanging out with my godmother. Her name is Pat too. And she was like a second mom to me. So I was very comfortable around her, and she comforted me. And it was very helpful for me at that time. So, I told her everything, all the things that were happening. And, she was receptive. She was what I would say a devout Catholic. She was Slavic. All her kids I grew up around on the Lower East Side, and I even called them my cousins, to this day. So we're in 2006 spring. It was still a little cold out, and I'm laying in my bed in my new apartment with the fog, and all of a sudden, there's my mother. She appeared at the foot of my bed. She was already sitting down. Usually if you show up, you're standing, right? She was sitting on the bed at the foot of my bed, on my side of the bed. And she looked amazing. Like maybe 35-ish, the way I remembered her, and radiant. And all she said to me was, honey, I'm okay. And she disappeared.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, right, where are you going? Right. I want to talk to you. Give me a hug. I miss you. Where are you going? And I couldn't see her anymore, but I could still hear her. And she says to me, where you are, the energy moves very slow. Where I am, it moves very fast. And I had to slow it down so you could see me, and I can't sustain it. And I'm like, wow. Well, I was like, well, what took you so long? It's been 3 years. It's been 3 years. And I hear her say, there's no time here. I came right away. There's no time here. So I had no idea what she was talking about. And that was right around the time that, the law of attraction stuff came out. I started reading everything I could get my hands on. And I learned about energy and frequency and vibration. And that's when I started acquiring, more spiritual oriented knowledge and so forth. So I told Pat, and she's like, I knew she was going to come. I knew she was going to come to see you. And I'm like, oh, you knew? I didn't know. How did you know? I didn't know. You didn't tell. Well, how did you know? And I said, you know what, Pat? I don't know. Maybe I hallucinated. In my heart, I know it was true, but I'm skeptical, right? So I'm like, yeah, look, I need you to promise me something. Now, Pat was 74 at that time, and she had diabetes. And just like her mother before her, she had both legs amputated by that time from the disease. And so, it was unlikely that she would outlive me. So I said to her, listen, Pat, if you die before me, you have to promise me that you'll come to visit me. So I know that what happened was true. And she promised me. And 2 years goes by, and nothing happens. The fog is still around, but nothing else happens. I don't hear anyone. I don't see anyone. 2 years later, Pat dies. In the springtime, in May of 2008, Pat dies. I don't see her. I don't hear her. I don't feel her. I'm like, you see? It was a hallucination. She's nowhere around, because she promised me. And I was just like devastated, because even though in my heart I knew what happened to me was true, because I don't suffer from delusions. If I did, I would see other things, wouldn't I? I would have other problems in my life, but Right. So then not too long after that, I start waking up in my dreams. I never woke up in my dreams in my whole entire, I didn't even know it was possible to do that. And let me tell you, it's pretty cool. I would wake up in a dream, and I would tell people in the dream, this is my dream. This is a dream. And they would say to me, this isn't a dream. What are you talking about? The dream. I was like, oh yeah, watch this. And I would climb up on a very tall building and jump down and land right in front of them and say, you see, it's a dream. Yeah, watch this. And I get a running start and I fly and I'm like, look, I'm flying. I'm not a bird, but I'm flying. Why? Because it's my dream, right? So I started waking up in my dreams. And there were 3 dreams that occurred that I want to talk about. And the last one, you know where I'm going. So the first dream, I remember a lot of the other ones, but these were particularly relevant to what I'm talking about today, I believe. So in one dream, I wake up and, you wake up in the dream and you know this is your life and that you're in a dream, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting on a couch in a house somewhere and I look to my left and I see a kitchen and I see my mother standing at the stove cooking. And I'm like, oh, Mom. And I run up to her, I'm like, Mom, you don't understand. This is a dream. This isn't my real life. In my real life, you died. And I'm so happy to see you. Give me a hug. I'm so happy to see you. And she says, what are you talking about? You were sitting on the couch watching TV the whole time. What do you mean you're not your life? So I felt myself waking up because she shocked me. I wasn't expecting that response.
Right.
So I feel myself receding from the dream. And I'm like, no, because I missed her. I wanted to see her. And I'm like, no,
Right.
So I wake up and I'm like, no, I'm going back. I'm going back. And usually I can't get back to a dream, but I got back to that dream.
Wow.
And I'm on the same couch and I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm like, Mom, you don't understand. I went back to my real life and I came back here and now I'm awake and you got to give me a hug because I don't know how long it's going to, I'm doing all that. And she's like, what are you talking about? You just took a nap and you woke up. What do you mean?
Oh.
So that blew my mind, shocked me into waking up. And I'm like, do I have a double in another life or something? Like, what is happening? Because I don't know. It was strange. So then the second dream I had that was interesting is I wake up and I see, when those trains go underground and there are like rocks above it and it looks like a tunnel and the trains go through there.
Yeah.
In the movies and things. So I see something like that. So, but only one side has a track, and on the right side, I see a platform, and I see a row of desks there, and at each desk there are Rolodexes, like something from the 1980s, and they're in alphabetical order, A to E, F to whatever, down to Z, and I hear my name called, Patricia Essoff. So I go to the desk and I see a lady there. She's kind of stout. I don't know, middle-aged, black hair. She has glasses on with a chain. And she says, honey, come sit over here. And I sit down and she sits me in front of, there's like a hole in the wall. And there's an old-fashioned computer. You remember how they used to have the computers that look like a box? The computer.
The big monitors. Or the big computers. Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of those. And then right next to it, it had like an 8mm tape, like those big wheels, used to see in a movie. I don't know which one, a projector, the big wheels that spun and it had film on
it.
Track.
Yeah,
like 8mm track. That right. I mean, I was like literally in 1975. I don't know. It was weird. So she says, honey, sit down here. So I'm sitting there and she says, this will be your next life if you choose to accept it. I'm like, what? Did I die? Because I didn't feel like I died. Like, I don't know. And she says, well, watch the film and let me know if you will accept this life. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, I'm compliant. And I'm looking and I see myself. I see my parents. I'm white in this life. I see the mom, the dad, they're in the living room. And I see myself. I'm like 10 years old. I have like one of those pixie cuts. I have black hair. And I'm in a wheelchair. And I'm like, why am I in a wheelchair? She says, well, if you leave this life early, you're going to have to continue with spinal cord issues. But in this other life, you will also be a world-renowned a heart surgeon. And she said, because you would be leaving this life early, you would have to have a similar life, but it's going to be a little worse and a little better. So what does that mean? In this life, I've had spinal cord injuries, okay? But I'm also a lawyer. Now, I'm a regular lawyer, and my spinal cord injuries aren't enough to put me in a wheelchair.
Right.
But if I chose that life, it would be to balance it out. You'll be in a wheelchair, but you'll be a world-renowned heart surgeon. I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I do not want to be a paraplegic. So she says, okay, honey, you see that tall gentleman over there with the clipboard? Like, he had a clipboard from 1972. I kid you not. Go up to him and he'll take care of you from here. So I go up to him, and mind you, I'm awake in this dream, so I know this is my life. So I go up to him, and he says, okay, this is your soul contract. So I'm looking at it, and it literally says soul contract. And the document looks like it's alive, like it's moving, like it's alive. And I'm looking, and my lawyer's mind is trying to memorize all the clauses because I know I'm coming back and I want to remember what I see. And then he says, now, so these are the terms of your soul contract. Now you have to jump in the water, and you have to jump in right there in that spot. Because if you jump over here, you're not going to get back to, you're going to go somewhere else, and you're not going to get back to your life.
Wow.
So I'm like,
that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And yeah. You know what? Like 10 years later, I watched a near-death experience video on YouTube, and she had cancer and she died and so forth. And they told her she had to jump in the water too. So I was like, oh my God, that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's true that, there were times where I didn't want to be in the world. Like it just felt so empty without my mother, and it just wasn't the same. But I wasn't going to kill myself, So anyway, I get back here and I'm like, no one's going to believe this. No one's going to believe it. I never even told anybody. I'm like, no. I wrote it down because in there something struck me.
Yeah.
And one of the clauses said years of lives, something like that. And it had the number 25. And I interpreted that to mean that I've lived 25 lives so far. Now, I understand about reincarnation now because I've been given the knowledge, and I'll get to that. But at that time, I'm like, 25 lives. Okay.
Just to ask you a really quick question. I want you to keep continuing because I usually jump in more, but I'm really wanting to hear what's going on. But I just wanted to say, at that point, you've been throwing out different terms like soul contract.
Yeah, that's what it said.
Were you aware of all this at that time? Like, were you studying spirituality or any of this stuff? So
No.
these terms were the first time you've heard of it.
Absolutely.
And then, because you're saying a lot of things that I have heard many times with NDE ears and different things like that. So I'm just in my head saying, wow, you're hearing all these things for the first time. You were a skeptic. You weren't really in that world. So I just wanted to clarify that that was the first you had heard of that. And
oh yeah.
And
okay.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to know that. So, okay.
I'm not okay. So yeah. And that's exactly what the document said at the top. It wasn't. So, I'm back. No one's going to believe me. And I'm still waking up in my dreams quite frequently. And I had other dreams where I woke up but they're not relevant. So one night, I wake up in a dream and I'm in a department store. I'm like, why am I in a department store? So I'm looking around, I see the clothes racks and this and that. And I walk, I'm trying to get out of the store. So I look to my left and I see 2 escalators. So I look up and there's Pat. There's my godmother. She's at the top of the escalator. And I said, oh, so this is how you came to see me. And, just like I had the sleep paralysis to have the experience with the cloud, I think I was waking up in my dreams to see Pat. That's just how it was going to work out for me, because that's what happened. So, because I never woke up before in my life in my dreams, and I never had sleep paralysis. So to put 2 and 2 together. Anyway, I see Pat and I'm like, come down. I want to talk to you. I want to see you. I want to hug you and everything. She will not come. I'm like, why aren't you coming down? I was like, okay, I'll go up. So you know how dreams are, weird things happen. So as I'm going up, she's coming down. So it's like happening at the same time. Don't even ask me how that worked out, but it did. So it
Okay.
stops in the middle and she's in front of me. She does not look like my mother. She looks like someone beat the crap out of her. Like, like she's beat up. And I'm like, what happened to you? Now, in all fairness, Pat had some violent tendencies when she was younger, especially when she drank. And I don't know if that's related because she didn't tell me that, but I suspect maybe she was having a life review. I don't even know. I don't know. But she was beat up. She was not looking radiant like my mother did. And I said, what happened? And she will not tell me. It was like, it felt like it was taboo for me to know. Like, you're not supposed to know this. So I was like, Pat, you have to tell me what happened. What was going on? And all she said was, you just don't know what it's like to be between heaven and hell. So that shocked me, like, it, right back to my body. I wasn't expecting her to say that, but that's what she said. You just don't know what it's like to be between heaven and hell. And
Wow.
I guess she's in purgatory because Catholics talk about purgatory. I don't know. But I woke up and I never saw Pat again. I didn't feel her. I didn't see her. I stopped waking up in my dreams. You know, except for about 10 years later, her image came into my mind, like a picture. And I didn't create it, just popped in. And in it, I saw her smiling and she looked young. And I'm like, oh, she's okay. She's okay now. So that's how that happens. So we're in 2008. The fog is still around and nothing else is really happening. I don't hear anything. I don't see anybody. So in 2011, I'm writing a book. I'm thinking, you know, I want to write a memoir. But I'm a little reluctant because, you know, I had two older brothers, like I said. One was 4 years older than me and the other one was 8 years older than me. So we were 4 years apart. My youngest brother died in March of that year. And I was like, oh, so, you know, if I write something, it wouldn't bother him. But Bobby's my oldest brother. Georgie was my youngest brother. I was like, am I bother Bobby if he reads it? So I was like reluctant. And all of a sudden I hear my mother's voice in my head telepathically. And she said, don't worry about Bobby. Write the book. Don't worry about Bobby. He'll be with us soon. So I wrote it down. And I was living with somebody at the time and I told him, I just heard my mother tell me that Bobby, my brother, was going to be with her soon. So this was in October. October. And the reason why I remember it is because I actually got a phone call from him around that time. And I hadn't spoken to him in more than 2 decades. We were estranged, not because of anything I did, but because he really didn't get along with my mom. And I was close to my mom and he just disappeared, you know, he just disappeared. So, not long after we started talking, we got into an argument over something that his daughter's boyfriend said about my youngest brother. And I said, hey, don't talk about my brother. He's dead. He's not here to defend himself. It's not right. And then my oldest brother's telling me I'm stupid because I'm defending my brother. I'm like, you know what? I would defend you too. So anyway, he hangs up on me. I don't even understand it. So 2 years goes by. I write the book. I don't publish it. I write the book. 2 years goes by. And I'm like, you know, this is stupid. I'm just going to call him and fix it because we're all grown up now and I'm going to fix it.
Right.
So I don't have his number. I have to look it up in Google. So I type in, his name is Robert Sharp. It's a common name. I type in the name Robert Sharp.
Right.
And the first thing that pops up is his obituary. I didn't even know he died. He died 2 months after I heard my mother's voice. He died in December 2011, the same year my youngest brother died.
This is your brother?
Yeah. He's my half brother, but they're my brothers.
But yeah.
Yeah. And he died in the same year as Georgie. Georgie in the beginning, Bobby at the end. 2 months after my mother spoke to me and said Bobby would be with us soon, meaning her and Georgie.
Wow.
And I didn't even know it. I found out 2 years later. Nobody told me.
So you heard that from your mother. You had this argument or whatever, and then You lost contact 2 years later. You found out he actually passed away.
Yeah, I typed his name in Google, and the
Mhm.
first thing that popped up was his obituary. Now, when I type his name in Google, I can't even find his obituary.
But
So how about
did you
that?
verify
Oh
he
yeah,
had passed?
I
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I contacted his daughters, and they said,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, he, you know, whatever. He dead. Yes,
Okay.
he's dead." And I also know he's dead because I saw him in spirit. But yeah, he's gone. It turns out he had MRSA. He contracted it when he was in the hospital, some kind of infection called MRSA, and it took
Okay.
his life. So that's
Wow.
what they told me. That, you know, listen, we don't really die, which I'm about to get to.
Yeah.
So I'm not even afraid to die anymore. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. So, 2013, the fog is still around, right? And nothing else is happening. Around 2016 or so, I decide I'm going to start meditating again. Now, when I meditate, this is what happens. And this is why I used to get scared. I don't know why it happens. This is what happens. After about 20 minutes, I can't feel my body. My breathing is very shallow and I have no thoughts. And I'm just in a space. And it's comfortable, but I'm just in a space. And how I know I'm going deep is I start to feel this force field around me. It's palpable. And I know it's starting to happen to me because my hands start to rise, right? And then I feel like I'm resting my arms on an armchair because it's like I can't see it, but it's there. So this is where I am, right? And I'm in my regular meditation wherever I am, comfortable, quiet, no thoughts. I almost feel like I don't even need to breathe. Like I could live by way of osmosis or something. Like my breathing gets really, really shallow. So um I'm in that space, and then all of a sudden I'm somewhere else. So I was meditating from 2016 to 2019 with no such experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And in the summer of 2019, I'm into my meditation. I'm trying to accept things and find, peace and make myself feel better and all the rest. So I'm going into my meditation, and all of a sudden, I'm somewhere else. And I'm not sleeping because I'm completely awake. I know that I'm somewhere else. I don't know how I got there. I never felt myself leave my body. Um, I don't even know. But I'm there and I'm very calm, very calm, very calm. And all I am is calm and interested in the environment. So I'm looking around and I see way in the background, I see a row like a forest. And I see a row of tall, I think they're evergreen trees. You know, the trees that you see when in movies when they're skiing and they're big and they use them for Christmas trees, but they're
That's
kind
right.
of thin, those trees. And there's a line of them, they're all the same size. And the sky is like an overcast day and it's all the same color. I think it was a construct. That's what I was thinking. I'll get to it. The sky is all the same color. There's no sun. It's like a light grayish color. And in front of the forest, I see an expanse, a large field of tall grass, like wheatgrass, tall
Mm-hmm.
grass.
Mm-hmm.
And right in front of that, I see a mound, like a small hill. And atop that hill, I see 4 to 5 feet by 2 to 3 feet, oval shaped, royal blue light forms hovering atop the hill. 2 in the back, 1 in the front. 2 in the back, 1 in the front. Maybe it's a cross between indigo and royal blue. It's just a beautiful royal blue color. And I'm not even shocked. I'm like not phased at all. I'm just, I don't know. I must have been drugged because I was as calm as the day is long.
Right.
It's like I was taking a walk in the park. I'm
Right.
just observing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I see a dirt path leading to me from the mound. And then I look to my right and I see a huge tree, just one, another mound. And on top there of it was a huge tree, the ones with the round canopy, maybe
Mm-hmm.
an elm tree or a maple
Yeah.
tree or an
Yeah.
oak tree, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's huge. And right in front of it, I see this humongous I mean, very big, maybe 20 feet tall by 7 feet wide, oval shaped, bright white light form. And in the center, it had a bright yellow, concentrated circular light, and there were bits and pieces of that yellow scattered throughout. And it was like, it's not pastel yellow, it's not, it's kind of like looking at the sun, or maybe fire without the orange and red tones, like bright yellow, right?
Right.
And I don't know who they are, what they are, or anything. I don't, and I'm just standing there. I felt like, I mean, I never looked down to see if I had a body, but I could see. I never looked down to see if I had a body. And I'm just interested. I have no thoughts about the past, no thoughts about the earth, my body. Am I dead? No thoughts about the future, I'm just only in the present moment. So I'm looking back and forth between those life forms and this life form, like for a good 5 minutes, I think. It was a while. And then all of a sudden, without me seeing anything move, the white light is in front of me. And I felt myself go like this, like my neck cranked back, because it was so big. I had to, take it all in. Right. So I felt, I mean, maybe I had a body, I don't know, but I felt my neck crank. I felt.
Right.
And as soon as I did that, I heard in my own voice say the word Jesus. It was a recognition that, oh, it's Jesus. And at the same time, I formed an image in my mind, and I printed out a copy so you could see the image. This is the image. And I think the reason why this image came into my mind is because my mom actually left me a painting of this in a frame. So I don't know, but that's the image that came into my mind. Mm-hmm. And then I heard a male voice speak to me telepathically, and it said, "That is not what I look like." It didn't say, "Hello, Patricia, you're here for a visit. Nice to meet you, welcome." No, the first thing it said to me was, "That is not what I look like." So in this place, like I said, you're only ever in the present moment. You don't have any preconceived notions of what shouldn't I say, what can I, you're just as innocent and calm and interested, and that's about it. So when I heard that, my response was, well, what do you look like?
Right. I was thinking the same thing.
What do you look like? Yeah. So I watched as the light form receded about, I don't know, 30 feet, 40 feet from me, and it stopped. And then it changed from a light form into a man. And there he was. And I looked him up and down, and I'm having my thoughts, right? And I'm like, oh, they do wear robes. He does have a robe on, and I see the sandals. And the first thing I noticed is his hair is not long. It's short. It looks short, and it looks full. He's going to be closer to me soon, so I'll be able to describe him more. But it's like roundish. And you know how they wore in the Roman days, a little bit heavier in the front and maybe a little out in the sides, but it was up to here in the back, like guys typically wear their hair. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't white. He was well tanned, darker than me. He was well tanned. And now in the Navy, I've been to the Middle East more than 10 times, and I'm like, he looks Middle Eastern. And when I say Middle Eastern, I mean, you could take him and plop him down in the middle of Saudi Arabia, and he would fit right in.
Okay.
So without me seeing him move, he's in front of me now. And I'm still focused on what he looks like, because he corrected me. He drew my attention to what he looks like, right? So whatever you focus on, there you are, 100%. I forgot about the blue lights, So I'm looking in his eyes. Oh, I have to backtrack. When he first changed into a man, I'm looking him up and down. I forgot about this. I got to his eyes, right? And I don't know what happened, but I could not look away. I don't know if I was hypnotized or mesmerized or what, but I could not look away. And I hadn't felt anything up until that point. I mean, even when I realized it was Jesus, I don't know if he had me on a Valium. I don't even know, but I was just like, oh, Jesus, I didn't have this feel like I needed to get down and say, do all, I never felt subservient. I never felt like I needed to prostrate myself. So I get to his eyes and I'm like, I'm stuck there. And the longer I looked, I started to feel like something here. And it was where the human heart would be. Like it was literally in this area. And I'm feeling emotion, but it doesn't feel like love. Like I love my mom, I love my wife, I love my husband, my child. It didn't feel like that. This felt like 100% devotion. And if I could put it into words, it was like, okay, what do you want me to do? I'll do anything you want. You want me to wash everyone's house in heaven for eternity? Okay, great. I'll do that. It was like I was waiting for him to give me my orders. Like I'm supposed to be doing something. What am I supposed to do? And I'll do it, no matter what it is. So, and then without me seeing him move, he cut it off. Like it just stopped. He's right in front of me, and I'm still looking in his eyes, and I notice that they're not blue, and they're not green, and they're not blue-green, like I've heard some envy ears say. They are dark brown, dark brown, like every other Arab man you see. They are dark brown, and I had the thought, which he then answered, why don't people say who have died? They say you have blue eyes and blue-green eyes when they're clearly dark brown. So he said to me, this is what he said: Spirit sees the light of the world and with all the universe in my eyes. But what you see is what I look like when I walk the earth as a man. Spirit sees the light of the world with all the universe in my eyes. But what you see is what I look like when I walk the earth as a man. And if you think about it, so two things I understood. When I came back, I was like, oh my God, he is the king there. He's real. He is the king there. And the other thing I realized was the earth, the world, was within his dominion. So I suppose when you're in spirit, because I wasn't dead, apparently, you have when you're in your full spirit bodies, you can hear people's thoughts and you see color differently. Like there was no unusual colors there. Everything looked ordinary. The trees were green, the wheat was beige, the sky was, there was nothing out of the ordinary.
Right.
But I think, what he meant was, if you look at the world from space, what color is it? It's blue. The world is blue and green. Right. And the universe is majestic. It has power, right? So when you're in your spirit body and you see him in all his majesty. And his eyes probably appear gem-like to them, like they see a reflection of all of his power. Right. That's not what I saw. He showed me what he looked like when he walked the earth.
So he gave you a real visual of what he looked like when he was a man on earth.
Absolutely, 100%. And then I get to, I start looking at everything now, right? So I look at his eyebrows, and they're thick, but they're very well groomed. He's extremely neat. Everywhere. And I don't know if it's because I was still human or whatever, but then I thought, oh, your eyebrows are manscaped. I don't know what he thought. He didn't say anything to me, but I have a friend who does that, and that's just that's the thought that I had. And so I'm going to describe him now. His hair is jet black, and it's curly, and it's like medium-sized curls. And that sexy, curly, tasseled, bed hair kind of hair, that's the hair that he has. And it reminded me of Michelangelo's David statue. The way the curls are, except it was shorter in the back. And, he had on a robe and it was plain and all that, but it was beautiful. And his beard is close to his face. It's a full beard, but it's very neat. And when I got back, I'm thinking, he would be GQ for biblical times, because he was on the earth. There's not a magazine in the world that would not want him on the cover, because he is exquisitely handsome. And I'm not saying that because he's Jesus. I'm telling you, he is the most handsome man I have ever seen in my entire life. So, and he's tall. So I'm looking up at him, because without me seeing him move, now he's standing diagonal to me so I can see his profile. And that's when I noticed how long his eyelashes were. And I was like, oh, eyelashes are so long. They're beautiful, but they're like noticeably long, you know? And, oh my God. So I'm looking up at him and he's like way up here. I'm 5'4" and his head is up here. So I'm like, he's really tall. So I met a guy recently. I said to him, how tall are you? And he said, I'm 6'4". And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, Jesus is 6'4". That's how tall he is. He's 6'4". He's very tall. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Anybody who has really seen him that has died, they know I'm telling the truth. They know that he's well tanned with brown eyes, if they've really seen him. And you know, it's easy for me to say, right? Because I can't show you, but this is what I know. I know we do not die. And I know that where we go, Jesus is around. He's around the people because I understand this now. I was told he's around the people there just like he is here. And you can just go up to him. He's very approachable. He's very personable. He felt like an older brother. He didn't feel like, you know, like, oh, you know, he felt normal and just like a regular person. But, you know, when he was in his spirit body, before I knew who it was, I understood that whatever that was, it had some kind of power because it was exuding power. When he was in his human form, I didn't feel that power anymore. So I don't know.
Well, he may have had to come down from whatever that was, you know, to show you what he looked like here. And that,
well, he has the power of transmutation. And, you know, I think that's why he moved back, because if he changed in front of me, it might have affected me, you know, because he was changing things. I don't know how to explain that, but I think that's why he moved back. Away from me when he changed himself. I think he has the power of transmutation, and maybe some of those stories in the Bible which are true. I'm not, you know, he didn't tell me that. I did ask him a couple of other things though, whether I should say anything about meeting him. Did he really die on the cross? And whether he was actually poor. That's all I asked him. But then now he's standing diagonally, and I hear his voice in my head again, and he says, would you like to see your mother? That was the first time I got so excited. I was like, yeah, of course I want to see my mom. Of course. So all he did was wave his arm, just like that. He waves his arm, and the blue light that was in the front with the two in the back starts to move. And I actually saw a trail. I didn't see Jesus move, but I saw this light form move. And I see it's blue, and then it's white, and then it's white and blue, and then more white than blue, and it stops. And the reason why I'm on a mound is because it stopped, and I was kind of looking down a little bit, right? I was looking down a little bit. Is this too dark?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. And it's my mom. And it was the weirdest thing because she stopped and she was wearing a robe, right? And it was, the material was gorgeous. It looks like royalty to me. And it had piping. It had a hood. The hood was half over her head. And it had piping. You know what piping is? Like you know what that is?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
So the material is one color here, and then on the edges, it's another color. Okay. Like a band. And then it had a sash. Also, she had a sash. And the piping around the edges was the same royal blue color that was her spirit body.
Oh, wow.
And that struck me. That struck me, right? But she didn't say anything to me. She's just standing there with her head down. She never raised her head, you know, to look up. She never raised her head. Her eyes are down. And I got this huge smile on my face because I can feel it. I'm just waiting for her to like engage me. And I'm looking at her, and then I see her do this. She puts her hands in a prayer position, and then she looks at, never raising her head, she looks up at me and she smiles. And I don't know if she did this to me because she was facing me or because Jesus was there. But I never saw my mother do that in her whole life. I never saw her
Wow.
do that in her whole life. So after that happened, she smiles at me. And then I hear Jesus speak to me again. And he says, would you like to see your brothers? Okay. So he waves his arm again. And the two other blue light forms become Georgie and Bobby. But they don't come forward. They stay in the background. And I'm looking at them and I noticed a couple of things that struck me. Georgie always wore crew cut. Okay. He was a regular guy with a crew cut, but he had long hair down his back. And I know, and the hair was undulating. It was moving like it was alive. But even though I was in nature, right? There was no wind, there were no birds, no bugs, no air. I never remember doing this. I don't remember breathing there. There was no air, no sounds, but his hair is moving. So that struck me, But they looked like they were standing straight, like this, and the hands were clasped in front of them, and they looked like I never saw them stand like that in life. So I'm like, what is going on? They were wearing robes, and they looked like royalty to me. I'm like, they look like princes. You know how they stand erect and everything, and that's what they look like. I don't know what that meant, but that's what they look like. And then I don't remember anything else. It was like the TV was shut off. I don't know how I got back. It's like, when you have a word on the tip of your tongue, right? And it's there. It's like, I know something else happened, but I don't know what.
I've had others describe that like that come back from having a near-death experience, is a lot of times they come back with a lot of knowledge, but when they get to certain points, they can't remember or even say what they saw. It's like, you said it, the way you said that was great. It's like the tip of your tongue, like they don't know how to describe it, so they can't form a thought of it. It
exactly
it's like something happened, but they can't figure out what exactly it was that happened. So you had that moment, and then there was something that happened, and all of a sudden you're back.
This is what I think. I think when I was standing there looking back and forth, Jesus was laying the ground rules. He was telling them she's not dead. She's here for a visit. You can't speak to her. You can't touch her, because if you do these things, you're going to affect her in life. She's not dead. That's the first thing. I will speak to her. He was controlling everything. I think it was a construct. I think wherever I was, it was not heaven. It was not the earth. It was some kind of place that Jesus created for the visitation, because he was literally using his power, and I watched him wield it to control everything. And including my reaction to things, because why was I so calm? If I saw someone change, first of all, if I saw a light form in my house, I would be like, what? And then see it change into a person, I think I would react, right? I had no reaction, right?
Yeah.
So I come back, I don't remember how I got back. I'm just on the couch. I'm like, no one's gonna do anything. No one's gonna do anything. So it took me 5 years to speak publicly about everything that has happened, because I just needed a reason, purpose for doing it. And I finally decided that it's really important for people to know a few things. One of which is that we do not die. No question about it. We do not die. The body dies, but you do not. Okay? And Jesus told me, this is what he told me when I asked him whether I should say something about meeting him. Because after I saw him, I was like, oh, I have to learn to draw and paint him, because he doesn't look like anything on the earth, and that's not right. No one even tried to paint a Middle Eastern man. He looks Middle Eastern, like 100% Middle Eastern. And no one's even tried to, that's just not right. So I've been trying to teach myself to draw and paint and all of that. But when I asked him if I should say anything, actually there were two things. What he said to me was these exact words. He said, many will not believe you, but many will believe you, and it will help them. This is how he talks. I don't know. This is what he said to me. And he has a beautiful voice. I mean, he has his own voice just like we do. And it's very melodic. And like I said, he's very personable. And then, I don't know, about 6 months ago, I'm still deciding whether I should do this. And I said, I need a sign. Please, just give me a sign. So I'm watching videos on how to draw portraits, and I'm into it because I'm serious about it. And I'm color theory, and I never drew in my life. So I have to learn everything. And a video pops up. I saved it out of nowhere. What did Jesus really look like? I'm looking at architecture, and this obscure video shows up about what did Jesus really look like. So I watch it and I'm like, no. I thought that was a sign. No one told me what it was, but I felt like that was sort of a sign. And then the other thing that he told me was that he was not poor. He did not grow up poor. They weren't like super rich, but they were not poor. I don't know. I get downloads of information, and now, and I feel everybody's feelings, and I know why we're on the earth now, and I know about reincarnation. I mean, I can hear them. I not every day, not all day long. I mean, but it's just the oddest thing, and I think that's. I mean, I don't know, but how could you have Jesus's spirit body right in front of you and not be affected? Like,
Right.
I don't know. And my mother's spirit going through my body like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like ever since that happened, like all these things started happening to me.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in for a minute.
I'm sorry. Did I
Don't
go
be
on?
sorry. No, this was great. I've only had this happen a few times where there was so much information that I sat back just to listen to your experiences.
Yeah,
And I really do appreciate you opening up and sharing them. I don't know if you've written them, if anyone can see them in a book or any of this kind of stuff. You can let me know that.
I'm
If
thinking
not,
about it.
if not, I'll tell you, you know, I I'm a singer-songwriter by trade. I'm a musician, and then I turned to this podcast out of nowhere. It just was I had an obsession with near-death experiences, and I thought I need to talk about spiritual things with people. That's boom. Everyone kept saying do a podcast. Didn't tell me they thought I was going to do a podcast on music, and I said no, I'm going to do it on this because this is what feels right. No idea why I'm here, but I'll say this:
Mhm.
I've spoke with so many people, and not really, though, in comparison to probably the amount of people I will speak with over my lifetime about this kind of
Yeah,
subject. But I will say your story and your experiences are very unique. And I think that it could really reach people. And I only say that because you're saying things that I'm hearing a little bit of from other people, but you're touching on a lot of these things. And this is coming from someone who's a skeptic and didn't
yeah,
have the knowledge of it before you even experienced it, and then you come back with all of this. The other
yeah,
thing is you mentioned the way Jesus looked. And
yeah.
I don't know if it is similar to what I saw years ago, but there is a girl, I don't know her name, I can't think of it off the top of my head. And she was a painter, and she was a young girl. And I don't know if the story is that she kept painting Jesus, but
Oh, the Russian girl?
yes,
He's
yeah.
Russian? Yeah, yeah. He doesn't
Yeah.
look like that.
He doesn't look like that. Was she getting
No, that
closer? Is she getting
if you look,
closer?
well, if you
Because
look
he's
at him,
darker, right? Yeah.
he looks like a Russian to me. He looks like a Russian Jew. Jesus does not have his hair blown back. That painting, his hair is blown back. It's not his hair is jet black, like
Mm,
jet black and
yeah.
curly, and he doesn't have green eyes. I know people say that, and that was the answer he gave me to
Yeah.
explain that. But he looks Middle Eastern.
I have heard what you're saying. I have heard this somewhere that he looks Middle Eastern, that he's darker,
Yep.
especially around, and I've heard this. I don't know where. I just have heard it. And it makes me wonder if these people like the younger Russian girl that painted it, they're saying I still believe they've seen something, but it's like you said, he explained that there's almost like this is the vision of
I can explain that. I asked him about that.
okay, okay, yeah, if you
He
could.
said he said that because some people say you have long hair and that you have a long beard or no beard. I've heard, and he said some spirits see me in ways that they need to see me, and I do not interfere, because if they go back to life, there are people around them that will not understand. They will not accept this. So I don't want to disrupt their life.
Mm-hmm.
When they come home, when they transition back home, they will know the truth and it will be fine. But because they're going back to life, he doesn't see the need to correct them. But with me, it was different. I don't care if you're purple. I just don't care. And I was just mistaken because of my upbringing. I grew up in a white family and Jesus was white. I mean, that's what it was. And I was just mistaken. And he said, with you, it's different. You were mistaken. And this is, now you see what I look like when I walk here as a man. And trust me, it's on my phone, so I can't even show you right now. But I sketched it out because I was going to show you, and then I forgot to print it. I have a sketch of what my best effort and what he looks like. It's not perfect yet, but I'm going to get there because, look, I'm not seeking to gain anything. I'm not trying to make money. All I know is that, people have reasons for depicting Jesus in a way, and they have their reasons for it. Mm-hmm. But I know that when they go home, he will be around, and they will see him, and then they will know that I was telling the truth. Not only that, I also know that everything is recorded. Everything that happens here is recorded. And when they go back and they review their life, because, I've been called a couple of names. I tried to make some comments on YouTube, and some of the replies were good. But this one guy says, I'm a Christian, and I think you need to read the Bible. And I was like, well, I'm thinking in my head, apparently you don't need to read the Bible to meet Jesus, right? So, but he says, I think you need to read the Bible. And, I have a friend who's delusional too. I'm like, wait a minute. So you're a Christian and you just calling me names and everything, So I know that people like that, like at first, that's the reason why I didn't want to say anything, because I didn't want to subject myself to, ridicule and name calling and all that. Who needs that, right?
Right.
But then I was like, you know what? He's just one of the ones that Jesus said will not believe me. And he'll find out. Because he could go, they have this place there. Some people, have you heard of the Akashic Records?
I have, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a place there. And I call it the Hall of Records because it's just easier. And everything is stored there. So if you want to know when you go home, just go there and look for yourself.
Right.
Then you'll see I was telling the truth.
To touch on the whole, since I've started this, the Soul Inspired podcast, I love the community that's building. A lot of it's a lot of love. And that's what I focus on. There are comments that come on. Sometimes I've had to remove if it's too far out there. And then there's some that I'm like, you know what? That's their opinion. That's okay. And I try to say to all my guests, don't get offended. You know the truth. You know your truth. And that's the way it goes, right? And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people don't speak the truth. And we're talking about people just have near-death experiences. They don't want everyone to think they're crazy, but then they say, no, I feel like I need to say what I've seen. So, okay. You spoke
I
on
had someone, if I could just say one more,
Yeah.
I had someone say to me, and this person knew me for like 15 years, and she said to me, oh, you're just saying Jesus was tan, tan skin and curly hair because you do. I was like, wait a minute. First of all, my mother is white, and then that's why I even told you that in the first place. So people will know that I come from a white family. So I thought Jesus was the same thing. But he doesn't look European. He just doesn't. So I'm not gonna say something that's untrue, just to make someone comfortable. I'm not gonna do that.
Right. And it's the same sense though that it's kind of, you said it perfect. If people have an idea of what he looks like, he's going to show the formation of what he looks like. Well, I think what you got, what the first time I've talked to anyone like you, is you were asking, what did you look like here? Because I mean, okay, you're talking to me, I'm Joe, and this is what I look like. Whatever, for whatever reason I chose this. Okay.
Yes, you did choose it.
Yeah. So I don't
Very
know.
cute.
Thanks. I don't know what it was, why I chose this, and I don't know if I will look different over there. I don't know,
No,
but I
no, no,
but
no.
but then the idea of reincarnation comes in. So if the idea of reincarnation comes in, well, am I going to change how I look?
Well, I
Because
know about that too now
okay,
because I asked and they told me. You want to know?
yeah, if
So
you have
let me,
any information on reincarnation, that'd be great.
you can reincarnate if you wish. You don't have to, and you can go to many places. But this is how, okay, so when you were created by God, the gift that you were given was to be you. So when you leave your body, you will still be you. And it's kind of reincarnation is kind of like this. Like your body is an avatar, right? So let's say I'm Pat, I die, I go home and I'm like, I wanna know what it's like to be a singer-songwriter. And I wanna have dark curly hair and I wanna be a man and I want my name to be Joe because I want to have that experience. When I go into Joe's body, I'm still me, except now I know how to write songs. Now I know how to play the guitar. It's kind of like when you're a kid, right? You grow up and maybe you take a woodworking class in high school or like an automobile shop because you want to learn about cars or whatever. Before you took that class, you didn't know anything about cars, right? You take the class, you graduate. Now you know about cars, but you're still yourself. It's kind of like that. You just have more knowledge.
Mm,
You do not change. The only thing that happens is you have amnesia. And the reason for that is so that you can have an immersive experience. This is the best virtual reality game you will ever see.
right.
You're in it. You are in it. And
Hmm.
for some reason, I was allowed to wake up.
Hmm.
Like I don't know everything, but I know enough. And I was allowed to see. I don't know why. I think my mother had something to do with it. But um I was
Well,
allowed
it
to see
did
it.
because it was such a big loss for you. That seems to be what catapulted you when she
But
left.
lots of people they lose their
Right.
children, they lose their
Right.
parents. Like I don't know. I think maybe I have a gift that I forgot about. And maybe it has something to do with being able to just communicate with the other side.
Hmm.
Because I know I have like I've always been sensitive, but I shut it down. So I'm like, no, because I'm a skeptic, right? I got to question everything. But I think that I have certain tendencies, which is why when I meditate, if you saw me, you would think I was dead
Right. Right.
because my breathing's so shallow.
Well,
Um,
I wanted to tell you one really quick thing. So I mean, first of all, the whole idea of the reincarnation thing, I mean, everyone over there was kind of this spirit, this blue, white spirit body, but then they could
no,
morph. No?
spirits are the different colors. So if you're a spirit, like I have a friend, and I sometimes I can see auras or something, and I said to her, you know what? You're not blue. You're actually like a pinkish mauve color. Come to find out that certain souls are close to angels, and those souls are pink, like not bright pink, like a rose, mauve, pinkish, pastel pink color.
Mhm.
That's her. So souls are different colors. We're not all little white orbs, although some are. My family was royal blue. Jesus was white with a bright yellow center.
Mhm.
I'm assuming I'm blue too, but other souls are different. Souls are different colors, and depending upon what color you are, uh, uh, it says something about the state of your evolution and what you do on the other side.
Oh, wow. That's
So
fascinating too. Yeah.
this is going to sound. I'm not trying to sound like important or some, but I think that I am literally Jesus' servant. Like he tells me I do things for him. I think that's why we're blue, because blue, my family look like royalty to me. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm thinking, do we work in Jesus's like house or his kingdom and we serve him? Like, what is it? Is
Hmm.
that why I was waiting for him to give me my orders, like to tell me what I'm supposed to do?
Wow.
You know, some people, end the years, they say, oh, I saw Jesus and I wanted to fall to my knees and praise him. I didn't feel that. I was waiting for him to give me my marching orders. Like, what do
Hmm.
you want me to do?
And that could
Just
be
tell me.
part of your spiritual evolution. You've maybe evolved to that point. And we don't know.
Oh,
These are all just our guesses. And I can
yeah.
understand why you don't want to say it because you're not trying to put yourself on any kind of pedestal or and
Oh, yeah.
there could be hundreds of thousands of people that are in the same boat as you. And that's the thing,
And there are.
right? And
Yeah.
so where I get a little bit confused, I can't seem to get off this topic for a moment. You had that one dream
Mhm.
where you were in that underground train
Yeah. Yep.
and you were seeing a possibility of another life that you could incarnate into as a blueprint of another life. Now, if you're here, right, and you're Pat and you look like you do now, and you were looking at this other person in a wheelchair, I think you saw, did they
Yeah.
look like you? Or were you
No,
going, okay, so
no. It
why
was,
would you look like you in the afterlife if you could also be that other person?
interesting question.
Hmm.
Because I was thinking the way I learned about it was I was like, oh, wait a minute. If there's reincarnation, does that mean my mom's not going to be there when I get there? Like, are they all going to be gone? So it's the kind of thing where your family waits for you until you come before we all decide what we're going to do. Those that love you the most before they decide. So I know my mom will be there. The other thing is that you can decide what you want to look like. You can look like anything over there. You're a majestic spirit. You are an eternal being. You have
Hmm.
power. Not like Jesus, but we have power. And if you want to look like Sally, well, have a good time
Right.
with Sally. But because you have an attachment to Joe, and you're going to recognize your mother's spirit, and you're going to want to be Joe with them. But
Right.
it doesn't
Okay.
preclude you if you had prior lives and you remember all of them and you see your mom from 3 lives ago, you might want to be John. And
Gotcha.
you can be
Okay.
because you are
So the
spirit.
essence of who I've created here and who you've created is an imprint. It's an energy imprint now forever. And you can be that, or you could be someone else.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand what you
I
mean
mean,
now.
my mom was dead for 16 years. When I saw her with Jesus, she looked just the same. She
Wow.
looked, you know, when Jesus changed into, this is the only difference. When Jesus changed into a man, he looked solid. Like we look solid.
Hmm.
My mom really didn't look solid. Like she was like, I don't know, like shimmering or like a little, I don't want to say a cartoon, but kind of like I could tell, like, I don't know I think maybe Jesus has power and he can make himself look solid, but she didn't look solid. She was like moving around the edges a little bit. And I noticed that.
That leads into one of the other questions I ask most of my guests, especially people who've had NDEs too, is you've kind of answered some of this, but how real did that feel in comparison to you and me right now?
Oh, it 100%. It was,
It was just as real as
I
this
mean,
moment.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but you have to understand, I didn't die. So if I died, maybe the colors would have been more vibrant and I could hear their thoughts and I would be like remembering everything about who I am and what I am in the eternal and
Hmm.
in eternity. And I would know what God is and the whole, completely,
Hmm. But it
which
didn't feel like a dream,
it wasn't
like
a
a
dream.
human dream. It didn't feel like a
No,
human
no,
dream.
listen, when you have a dream.
Hmm.
I dream, and I can't even remember what I dreamt 2 days ago. When
Right.
you have an experience like this, I mean, it's been 5 years, and I remember it like it was yesterday when I saw my mom appear at the foot of the bed. That was in 2003. When I saw Pat in a dream, because that was a dream where I woke up. That was a dream, but I was awake. That was 2008, and I remember it like it was yesterday. You
Wow.
know, yeah. So when these things happen, uh, it's like you know, you're traumatized, right? somehow, but in a good way. And
Yeah.
so you can't forget. You're like, you know, it's not a dream. You
And,
know when you're dreaming.
and that's the same thing the NDEers generally say, is it just the memory of that doesn't go away the way a dream does. And
Yeah.
a lot of them describe it more as more real than this. I've always been trying to understand that, but I don't quite understand what that means, but a different
The
form
reason
of real, maybe.
no, I think that it's just another um level of reality.
Mhm.
So, like I said, you can see 360 degrees. You know, everything is sharp and in focus. There's a lot of different colors. This is my understanding. So it's like you are in your full spirit body and you remember everything, and it's just, you know, that you're real life. So, when I said I woke up in a dream and I knew this was my life and that was a dream, it's kind of like that.
Right.
Your body dies, and then you wake up. And
Wow.
on the other side, you were just gone for 5 minutes. You thought it was 80 years. It
Hmm.
felt like 80 years because time is an illusion. But
Yeah.
on the other side, you just took a nap and basically woke up.
The other thing you said that was really fascinating was the one dream where you were talking to your mother and she said you just had a nap. So when you were awake here, you were like you were flipping between the two realities. And
Yeah.
I just interviewed somebody. I just put the release out today. And she had an experience as a child where she had an imaginary friend. And at 4 years old, she went to her mom and said, "Mom, my imaginary friend, when I'm dreaming, she's awake. And when she's awake, I'm dreaming." And
Wow.
she started trying to explain this to her mom, and her mom was like, "What are you talking about?" Right? She was having this spiritual experience with this who ended up being her sister who she had lost before birth. She was supposed to be a twin, and they were having
Oh,
a communication back and forth. Yeah, it's a wild experience.
no.
Yeah.
I believe most things now, because how can I not?
Yeah, so she would say, "Yeah, when I go to sleep, she wakes up. When she goes to sleep, I wake up." And it's kind of like this. She explained it much better than I am. But I thought, wow, that was that. And you kind of touched on that a little bit. Like your mom's like, "What are you talking about? You just had a nap," And then so that's a wild experience in itself too.
But that was a dream. So I'm like, I don't know if it meant we exist in parallel worlds, because that's kind of what I took away from it, or it
Mhm.
was just a dream and it was
But
just weird.
and that
That was
dream
weird.
felt different from the reality moment you had with Jesus and all that. That felt like a different experience altogether.
Oh, yeah, I was in a dream. I knew I was dreaming. And
Hmm.
I told her, I'm in a dream. You don't understand. But when I was meditating and then I was in this place, I knew I wasn't sleeping. Somehow I think, honestly, I think Jesus planned it with my mom, and they said we have to wait until she's in a state of mind where we can bring her,
Hmm.
where I can bring her. Because when she's walking around, her brain is interfering and I can't get to her. So we have to wait until she's at, like, basically comatose or something. I don't know. But and that's what happens to end of years, right? They are either in a coma or the body has died. But once the body's out of the way, even with out of body experiences, I didn't even tell you everything that I've experienced because I didn't want to take up. But I've had a couple of times where I was meditating, I could feel invisible arms, like my. I think there's a body within this body. I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I opened my eyes and I didn't see anything, but I felt these arms out here, like I was trying to have an out of body experience or something. I wasn't successful, but that's what happened, and I just it's we where we are now is not the actual reality. This is the dream,
Right.
and
Right.
it's now that I know what I know, and I go out into the world and I see people take their lives so serious, and I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. I'm like, God, you are an eternal, majestic. You have no idea how powerful you are,
Hmm.
how beautiful you are, and you don't just relax. Like, it's just an experience. So they told me why we come to the earth. We come here. It's very simple.
You're answering my final question. I was going to ask you what our reason for incarnation is. Like, why we all come here and we do all these crazy things. Like you said, we go through the stress, we go through the, what do you go through? Loss of of children, loss of family, divorces, job loss, all these different things that we take so serious. And then the question is, what's all the purpose? Why do we come here? What are we doing here?
We come here for two reasons. The first is to learn about what is not love. We come here to learn what is not love. Why? Because God is love. It's an infinite intelligence, but it's literally composed of the energy of love. That's why love is so pervasive on the other side and sometimes overwhelming, because God is literally everywhere. Nothing exists without. And I don't mind using the word God because I don't have issues with that. But we don't, while we know there's love, we don't know what love is. And so the earth was created like a kind of a school where you come to learn what is not love. So what is not love is hate, anger, pain, loss. This is not love. And you learn about what is not love so that you can appreciate what love is. Mm. So it's kind of like the inverse is true. You come to learn about what is not love so you can understand what love is. Wow. Like, because you experienced it. And the second, I would say, sub reason why we come is simply to have the experience. Like, for example, on the other side, you can swim, there's water, but you do not get wet. Mm-hmm. You don't cry, you don't sleep, you don't break your bones, you don't have a broken heart, you don't suffer. It does not. And you're like, oh, you mean I can have private thoughts and no one can hear my thoughts over there. And I can have a child and I can cry and I can feel like I'm alone, like I'm not part of the collective, and I can cry, like water comes out of my eyes and I have a broken heart. Yeah. And I don't know that where God is anymore. Like I know it's only temporary, but this really happens. I want to go there. I want to go there.
Right.
And then they say, the advisors, and they say, well, that's not all that happens. You also learn what compassion is and empathy, because you know these things exist, but you don't know what it is to experience it. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you see someone suffering here and you want to help them, that's compassion. Yeah. When you feel another's pain, that's empathy. And you want to know what that feels like, and by way of experience. So you literally come here. I mean, we come here for something as simple as having ice cream.
Right.
You know, yeah. You want to taste ice cream. You want to eat spaghetti. You remember, you want to feel that again. You don't eat that. You don't eat on the other side. I'm telling you, I was standing there and there was no air. Yeah. I did not go at all. Mm-hmm. There was no atmosphere. I mean, I was fine. I didn't mind. You don't even think about it. Right. But I mean, you come here to feel the wind on your face, mm-hmm. and to experience dying, because dying is a great fear for many people, and you don't get that kind of fear on the other side. And that kind of fear is one of the most significant forms of what is not love. That fear is not love. And boy, does that teach us many people a lesson we made, you know?
So I love that. So really, I mean, the closer we can get to finding the opposite of that, and to try to lose that fear of death. This is why I love what I do. This is why I love talking to people like yourself, because it gives people the hope and the understanding that we are bigger than what we think. And then when you talk about all that, and I think, yeah, you're right, to taste the ice cream, maybe at some point you can experience everything there, but because everything is at your fingertips, it's not a challenge, right? We come here probably for the challenge of it too, for the experience of learning things.
No, you can eat ice cream over there, but mm-hmm. you don't have taste buds.
Right.
So what's the point?
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
You swim, but you don't get wet. Mm-hmm. Like you want to get I know it sounds simple. Yeah. But you want to get wet. You want to be
right. And then,
Yeah.
it goes down a whole other concept of this is just Earth and this is just the human body. I mean, there's probably other entities and things that are understanding God differently than we are. Like I don't believe we're just here. This is just us. But that's my belief.
What do you mean, like other worlds?
Yeah, like other
Oh,
worlds,
for sure.
other entities experiencing, and I believe some of them might even be a little bit closer to understanding where we come from, and they go there for a different reason. Earth, I always say, like, I feel like this is one of the places people come that feel very separate, and we have to we're trying to find our way to understanding that we are bigger than we are.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Have you noticed that more people are waking up?
oh yeah. Yeah, I just find that, I mean, even like shows like this are just getting bigger and bigger, and
Mhm.
people are, I, I think about it this way. I'll leave it like this. You know, I always say 50 to 100 years ago, this conversation wouldn't have existed, especially on this kind of a platform where people can get this kind of information.
Yeah.
And if you look at just evolution, the way we're moving, just because we are in linear time each year, well, if it keeps going at this rate, right? Where are we in 50 to 100 to 300 years from now? If we keep going on the right path and understanding who we are, it can be a beautiful thing. I try to stay away from all the negative stuff. I know there's a lot of people that go that way, but I'm like, but we get to choose. So let's choose the
Yeah.
right way. Let's choose the light. Let's choose the right way. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my little getting people like you on and getting those messages out. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you being on today. I really do. This was amazing. I was like just sitting there like I needed my popcorn. I needed to it was
Oh
just
my goodness.
unbelievable. Like it
I
really
think
is.
I might eventually write a book with illustrations
Hmm.
of the things that I draw and paint in there and see where it goes. I don't know.
Absolutely. And if you ever do, let me know and I'll include it in the show notes because the hope is that these videos over time get viewed and more and more and more, and people gain the knowledge, right? That's the whole purpose. That's what these episodes are for. Please keep liking, sharing, and subscribing to all the audience at Soul Inspired. You guys are all amazing. Keep the conversations open and be nice and positive about them so that I can keep having people on and raising I would say, our consciousness and our awareness of what's going on. But Pat, thanks so much for coming on today. I really do appreciate it.
You are most welcome.
So is ya. So